You know, the thing about that, I know we have to get to this game, is Bijan Robinson threw the football to his offensive lineman. When he was invited to do this show, he brought out 2 of his offensive linemen. When I first met him, he almost seemed unreal, that a kid could be that humble, that someone could understand where his blessings truly came from in that way. But you can tell that that locker room appreciates the person that goes along with the exceptional player.
I said the exact same thing when I met Tim Tebow years ago, and I told him after the fact, I said, you know what, I kept thinking you're going to show me who you are eventually, until I finally realized you were all along.
Yes.
That's just who you were. The graphic that you saw relates to the playoff picture that's coming up Week 18. There is a gigantic game that is coming between Seattle and San Francisco. It's a doubleheader. We will be up in New York to serve both the audiences of the Tampa Bay Carolina game and then the night game. Who earns this top spot, do you believe, Ron?
You know what? I believe it's the Seattle Seahawks, because I believe the Seattle Seahawks have the more dominant, complete roster when you think about some of the pieces that are missing from the San Francisco 49ers. But in believing that and feeling that, that means there's no more pressure on any player in Week 18 than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had the Minnesota Vikings in this exact situation last year, and he was facing the Detroit Lions, and he went out in that game and he didn't show up in the way that he needed to. And then that carried over to the next week in Phoenix, Arizona, when we watched the Los Angeles Rams send the Minnesota Vikings home. It's in large part, and that played a large part into why he's in Seattle now. It's time for him to exercise all of the demons. Show up in that moment the way he showed up late in that game against the Los Angeles Rams, because all eyes will be on Sam Darnold, because we all believe they have the better football team.
We talked about trust a little bit earlier. If you say San Francisco, I don't think I can trust that defense. Philadelphia, I don't know if I can trust your offense, right? If it's the Rams, I trust them personally. And with Seattle, it's Sam Darnold. Can you trust him? And you saw the game against the Rams earlier where it was close in the end, but he turned it over a bunch. Can you trust him based on the way last year ended? And that O-line for Minnesota was really bad at the end. He wasn't his fault in that game against the Rams. But I think really it comes down to him, doesn't it, in this game?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I said this at the end of their Rams victory a couple of weeks ago, is Sam Darnold needed to get that win. He needed to finish that drive in overtime. I believe that's the reason Mike McDonald goes for 2, is to put it in his hands so he can show that entire locker room that he can be trusted, that he can be counted on. You know who else needed it, though, Scott? Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
He needed to know that in that moment when called upon, I can show up. In that moment when called upon, I can be the reason that we win. And this is such a huge step for this team and for him, because what felt like a foregone conclusion of us seeing the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl doesn't seem as clear anymore. And the Seattle Seahawks can be the beneficiary of that. And think about the entire NFC playoffs having to run through Seattle, much like we saw it during the days of LOB.
It could happen. It could happen. I'm still going to ride with the Rams. I'm going to feel foolish when that Eagle defense shows up and shows out for 3 games in the playoffs. Do you think Seattle ultimately represents the NFC?
You know what? I'm still a believer in the Rams. I really am. I believe Devontae being healthy, Quentin Lake on the defensive side of the ball, and if they can get some of this protection healthy again, I believe in the same experience that we talk about with Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, even on a higher level with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, because they're champions.
And I feel like every single team social media is just out there just doing the receipts and they're jotting things down. And that's fine. That's fine, because I'm not knocking any of you. And I think this year you're just pulling names out of a hat.
You made the biggest point, though. Philadelphia showing up for 3 games will not surprise me. And they have a quarterback that has been his best and his brightest when the lights are the same.
And it's got a deep
couple teams from the NFC West next week, the Seahawks and the 49ers. All 3 of these teams are favorites to win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Which of these 3 impresses you the most?
Oh, wow. Well, we haven't seen Seattle this year, and I love what they've done. I love their defense. I love what Sam Darnold's done, the offense. Huge game last week against the Rams, as we know. I thought it was interesting hearing them talk about Sean McVay. Hey, we don't care who we play. We don't care where we're seated. That comes from someone who has no chance any longer of being the number 1 seed, right?
Yeah,
if they had a chance, then he'd be scoreboard watching just like the rest of them. But I think the Rams, I mean, you look at them offensively, they're every position group offensively is a top 5 in this league. I mean, they are so talented. What Chris Shula has done with the defense has been phenomenal. Great young talent. Can't say enough about what Les Snead has done as a general manager. But that division alone, they're all really well coached. They have great offensive coaches as well. They play tough defense, and it's a shame they're all in the same division.
Right.
But it's going to be one heck of a race in the NFC for the playoffs.
Yeah, staying with that Seattle 49ers game coming up, Sam Darnold is always going to have questions around him in these particular games and moments. What sort of advice would you give to Sam Darnold going into not only a game against San Francisco, but also as the team moves to the playoffs?
Well, I think confidence comes from having done it, and I think last week in that game, there were moments when it didn't look so good, but they were able to win it in a big game that he had to win. And so I would expect that gives him some confidence as he goes into this big showdown against San Francisco. And I want to see him do well. I want to see all quarterbacks do well. You try to, as much as you want to say, just treat it like any other game. He's had such a really solid year. It's like preparing for a Super Bowl. You say what you want. You know it's not like any other game.
Particularly the way last year ended for him. Think about the season in Minnesota. He was great, and then the game at Detroit, and then the game we had, which actually ended up being in Phoenix against this Rams team, it all goes wrong.
And for Sam, he's taken the long road to get to where he is, and I'm proud of what all he's done. And it was obvious he invested a lot of time this offseason to put himself in this position this year. But until you get through those big moments, he's waited all year to get to this stage, and now it's all right out there, not only in front of him, but in front of Seattle. And I know all too well. I mean, when you get to this stage of a season and into the playoffs, that's when you leave your mark, and it follows you for the rest of your life.
There's a guy we have seen on this stage, and that's Brock Purdy. And you were talking about these elite play callers. He has that in Kyle Shanahan. How impressive has he been since returning from injury?
Yeah, he's on a roll. He's impressive. Last night was a tough start, with the the pick six. But he's a confident guy, and he came right back. And that's what I like about him. He's always going to carry the tag of being Mr. Irrelevant, and he's anything but. Just have someone in the locker room. But he's a tremendously confident player. He thinks he can put the ball anywhere. Most of the time, that serves him really well. And then other times, not so much. But I'm a big Brock Purdy fan and can't wait to see him play as well in the postseason.
A big part of our conversation about that team, we know what a fan of Shanahan you are. They're cooking, but that defense is a concern. That'll be a topic, I'm sure, in that broadcast on Saturday. We got a big one tonight with the Rams and Atlanta. Look forward to the call and talking to you when it's done, Troy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You.
Appreciate it. Swag's best friend, Troy Aikman.
I love him, man. I don't need to say nothing to him. We already stopped.
It's Saturday, a couple of games that are monstrous. It's Tampa Bay and Carolina. Theoretically, the winner goes to the playoffs. There are some permutations that involve Atlanta, as we mentioned earlier. And then the 1 seed is on the line when Seattle and San Francisco will hook up out in Santa Clara.